The Air Force spends more on weapons than any other service, and the official in charge of negotiating the price was Darlene Dryun.
I take very seriously the fact that I am a steward of the taxpayer.
Which is why there is such shock that Dryun, one of the most powerful women in Washington, is headed to prison in the biggest Pentagon scandal in 20 years.
Where was the Department of Defense in this? How could she do all this alone?
Chances are you've never heard of a woman named Darlene Dryun, but she's been spending a lot of your money, your tax money. For 10 years, Dryun was the Air Force official who decided how much to pay for bombers, fighters, missiles, you name it. She had such a reputation as a tough negotiator, she was commonly known as the Dragon Lady, which is why there is such shock that Dryun, one of the most powerful women in Washington, is headed to prison in the biggest Pentagon scandal in 20 years. It appears that billions of dollars were doled out to the Boeing company as Dryun was cashing in, accepting personal favors for her family. Now both the Pentagon and the defense industry are reeling from what you might call the curse of the Dragon Lady. The Air Force spends more on weapons than any other service, and Darlene Dryun negotiated the price on many of the deals. $131 million each for F-22 fighters, $350 million boosters for spy satellites, and the latest satellite-guided bombs. In all, Dryun's taxpayer credit card racked up $30 billion in charges every year. $30 billion. She had a bigger budget than the Department of Homeland Security or the Justice Department. And as she told a congressional committee in 1998, she didn't let generals or CEOs push her around.
And I think I have a very clear, crisp record. I am also not a shrinking violet. And I can tell you very clearly that if I don't like something, I don't sit there and keep my mouth shut. I do something about it.
She has a very difficult disposition. She believes that no matter what the circumstances, she's in charge.
And that's coming from her former boss, Marvin Samber, the Assistant Secretary of the Air Force for Acquisitions.
She treated me as if I was the summer help, that she was...
But you're the boss.
Well, she's had a lot of bosses over the years. They came and went. So when I came in here, her view was, you're temporary, you're summer help, and I'm going to be here long after you're gone.
That's because top civilians in the Air Force, like Samber, are political appointees, hired and fired by the president. Dryun was career Air Force. In fact, there were times when as much as a year would go by when there was no political appointee above her, leaving her in charge.
I take very seriously the fact that I am a steward of the taxpayer.
She liked being in charge of acquisitions.
Oh, sure, she definitely did. She liked the power, absolutely.
And in the year 2000, she had enormous power over this, the C-130. Dryun was considering whether to pay Boeing $4 billion to update the planes. She had Boeing's immediate future in her hands, and she used some of her power to get something for herself. Dryun called Michael Sears, the chief financial officer at Boeing, and asked him to arrange a job for her daughter's fiancé, Michael McKee. Boeing set up the job right away. Then, about 2 months later, with the contract still on the table, Dryun asked for a job for her daughter, Heather. Boeing again complied. You might be surprised that under Pentagon rules, that's not illegal.
She's overseeing billions of dollars worth of Boeing contracts, and her daughter works there. Her son-in-law works there. I mean, is that okay?
No.
It's legal.
It should not be legal.
Months after her daughter and now son-in-law went to work at Boeing, Dryun awarded Boeing the $4 billion contract. But that was just the beginning. Next, Boeing presented an idea that was enormous even for the Pentagon. It wanted to lease to the Air Force 100 767s as refueling tankers. The cost, $23.5 billion. Critics thought the idea was much too expensive. But during the price negotiations, Boeing internal emails showed that Dryun was siding with Boeing, not the Air Force. After one meeting, a Boeing executive wrote, "Meeting today on price was very good. Darlene spent most of the time bringing the U.S. Air Force pricer up to our number."
Her job was to get the best possible price of the product for the American taxpayer. Instead, obviously, she drove the price up to get the best possible deal for Boeing Corporation.
Senator John McCain uncovered the emails in an investigation of the tanker deal.
And in driving the price up, how much money do you think the taxpayer is out on the tanker deal as it was constructed at the time?
Well, I don't know exactly, but it had to be in the billions.
Billions of dollars.
It had to be.
Was Dryun padding the tanker contract just because her daughter and son-in-law worked at Boeing? Not exactly. In the midst of the tanker negotiations, Dryun's daughter, Heather, emailed Boeing's Mike Sears and revealed that her mother was retiring from the Air Force. Now Dryun herself was looking for a job, and she had demands. Heather wrote Sears that the job must be challenging, tough, lots of responsibility. She is very interested in talking to us, but we would have to give her something that would blow her out of the water. She also mentioned that Boeing has her most admired quality, honest values.
Darlene Dryun understood the rules of the game, and that this discussion about employment was going to violate the rules of the game.
Paul McNulty is the U.S. attorney who prosecutes federal crimes at the Pentagon. He told us that while getting jobs for Dryun's family isn't a crime, getting a job for herself is a felony, a violation of conflict of interest laws.
If Dryun in that time period had made those calls to Sears herself, sent those emails herself, what would that have meant?
Well, it wouldn't really meant much different than what happened, because by using her daughter, she was still doing something indirectly that she wasn't allowed to do directly.
And that contact, even through her daughter, is against the law.
That's right. That's part of the conspiracy to violate the federal conflict of interest law.
In October 2002, at the height of the tanker negotiations, Dryun and Boeing's Michael Sears met secretly at this airport in Orlando to talk about her proposed Boeing job and the F-22 fighter, which Boeing was involved in.
Right there, on that one day, in that one 30-minute meeting, the violation of federal law occurs, because they're negotiating employment and they're doing business at the same time.
How much did Boeing's top executives know about the meeting and the illegal negotiations? Well, have a look at this email that Sears sent to the office of the chairman of Boeing. Had a non-meeting yesterday. Good reception to job, location, salary. Recommend we put together a formal offer. In November 2002, Dryun accepted an offer to be deputy general manager of Boeing's Missile Defense Systems, with a $250,000 salary and a $50,000 signing bonus.
I was terrified. I actually was terrified for the Air Force. There was just too much about the tanker program that was going on, and I didn't want anyone to perceive in any shape or form that there was anything wrong with this negotiation. And I felt that she going to Boeing was not right. Totally not right.
And it didn't last long. That job offer her daughter once said should blow her out of the water did exactly that. Senator McCain's investigation of the tanker deal uncovered the emails. Dryun, seen here walking into federal court, pled guilty to a felony and has been sentenced to 16 months. Michael Sears, on the left, Boeing's chief financial officer, also pled guilty. He'll be sentenced later. Fallout from the scandal reached all the way to the top of Boeing. Chief Executive Officer Phil Condit resigned. An audit by the Congressional Budget Office found Dryun's tanker deal would have overcharged taxpayers nearly $6 billion. And if there was any doubt about her motive, Dryun cleared that up in a statement to McNulty's investigators.
Well, in fact, she referred to her decision on the tanker deal as a parting gift to Boeing.
She actually described it as a gift to the company.
As a parting gift to the company, right.
But it turns out the tanker deal wasn't the only gift. At her sentencing, Dryun stunned the Pentagon when she admitted swinging 2 other contracts Boeing's way, worth another $500 million. She admitted that the family jobs influenced her government decisions and that she took actions which harmed the United States.
where was the United States Air Force? Where was the Department of Defense in this? How could she do all this alone? That is really one of the fundamental questions in this whole scandal.
You believe she did do it alone?
I don't know if she did it alone or not. But where was the oversight of the Secretary of the Air Force? Where was the oversight of Mr. Samber, who was supposed to be in charge of acquisition?
How could you not know what she was up to?
Why would we think that to be the case? As I told you, the core value in the Air Force is integrity. She had a spotless reputation. Everybody, you talked about the Dragon Lady. That was due to the fact that she was a tough negotiator. No one suspected that there was any integrity problems.
How many people work for you?
500.
500 people work in Air Force acquisitions,
Right.
and none of them knew what Darlene Dryun was up to?
That's correct. It appears that nobody knew.
How could that be? These
Because
are billions of dollars in contracts.
There's no evidence that we're finding that there was anything that would have prompted anybody.
Well, the Air Force would tell you today that they had no way to know that Ms. Dryun was dealing on her own account.
What kind of a system is it that one individual has the ability to determine multi-billion, 20, 30 billion dollar contracts without anyone checking up on it?
Dryun's former boss, Marvin Sambers, says the Pentagon is putting together an independent committee to figure out how Dryun amassed such power and why nobody seemed to notice.
We want to learn. We want to correct. The Air Force wants to be open here. We want to restore our integrity. We want to do what's right.
Senator McCain plans to hold hearings into the scandal. In the meantime, he's been holding up Senate confirmation of promotions for Pentagon civilians and officers. Under that pressure, the Secretary of the Air Force, James Roach, has resigned, and so has Marvin Samber.
It's reached the point where my serving is hurting my Air Force family. I love this family. I will do nothing to hurt it. Period.
We've got to change not only the process over there where one person can't make these decisions all by themselves, and also the culture that allows this kind of thing to go on.
Do you think we know the whole truth at this? No.
I do not. I think that there's a lot that we'll probably never know.
Dryun, her daughter, and son-in-law all declined to talk with us. So did Michael Sears and Phil Condit of Boeing. The Dryun scandal is far from over. Investigations by the FBI and the Pentagon Inspector General continue. The Pentagon is now reviewing every contract Dryun handled during her 10-year Air Force career.